Welcome to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. Ooh. Ha! Welcome to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, we're checking out a brand new lens from Panasonic. This is the 18mm F1.8 super wide angle prime lens for the Panasonic L mount. If you're new to the channel, I mostly shoot video, so this will be a video shooter's centric review of this particular lens paired with the Panasonic S5. Before we get started, a huge thank you to Panasonic for the loan of this 18mm prime. Just to let you know, I don't get to keep it, nor am I being paid by them to make this video. All thoughts about this lens will be my own, and I'll give you my final thoughts at the end of this video. If you'd like to skip ahead to a different section of this video, timestamps will be down in the description below. First up, I wanted to showcase just how wide this field of view is from the rest of the S series of primes and the 24mm in particular. I left the tripod in exactly the same position, and as you can see, it's quite a lot wider than even the 24. This field of view comparison also gives you a very clear indication of how well the colors and contrast match between each of these lenses. This additional width makes it an excellent choice for landscapes, astrophotography, real estate, or anything else where a 24mm might be a little bit too tight. Shooting with the Panasonic S5 in the 4K 60 APS-C crop mode, the 18mm becomes a 27mm focal length. This APS-C crop mode essentially gives you a second tighter field of view without having to change lenses. This is a really handy feature for different shooting scenarios where a super wide lens might not be the right choice. The 27mm crop mode is more of a standard wide, and the image quality in this mode is also very pleasing. And there's a lot of bees around here, so I'm gonna move. One of the significant advantages of a super wide angle lens is the minimum focusing distance. This 18mm is no exception. This prime has a close focusing distance of 8 centimeters, and I'll put the inches up on screen. This allows you to get up close and personal with any subject and actually achieve some pretty decent shallow depth of field. Let's talk about colors and contrast. One of the great things about the S series of primes is that they're very consistent when it comes to their performance. For example, you can switch between the 24, 35, and 50mm and not notice any changes in the colors and contrast. After shooting with the S series of primes now for about a year, this 18mm is entirely interchangeable with the rest of the lineup. This is a massive advantage for multi-camera setups or those folks using gimbals where you might be switching out lenses. It really means there's little to no post-production required to maintain the same look. Gimbal operators who use a follow focus motor will appreciate the consistent size of each of these lenses in the lineup, including this 18mm. It makes swapping out lenses very easy without having to adjust everything or to rebalance the gimbal. The Panasonic 18mm F1.8 is weather sealed, dust and splash proof, and it can operate down to -10 Celsius. It's great for the Canadians. DP review, I'm looking at you. While the focus ring has no hard stops on either side, this focus by wire system is now completely usable in manual focus thanks to the linear focus settings within the Panasonic S5. Manually focusing with the linear option enabled makes it much easier to pull focus repeatably and reliably. Focus breathing is exceptionally well controlled on this lens, and it's consistent throughout the full range of S series lenses. Panasonic rate this 18mm at 1.5% breathing versus the 15% you might find from some of the Sony G Master lenses. Now, the Sony a7 IV can compensate for some of that heavy focus breathing, but it comes at the expense of resolution. As you can see from the examples on screen, the Sony G Master does have great autofocus, but the focus breathing is far heavier than the equivalent 24mm f1.8 for the Panasonic S series. Much like Panasonic's 24mm, this new 18mm prime has very low focus breathing. If you plan on vlogging or doing any type of handheld video, I'm going to cover what you need to know about wobble. Like most super wide angle lenses, if you're shooting video handheld, there will be some wobble in the corners. Even with a decent IBIS system in the S5, I did experience some corner wobbles in some shots. What did impress me though was how well the IBIS system started to compensate for this after just a little while when I was doing handheld, moving, or follow shots. For best results, a gimbal is the way to go, and it will make your footage look buttery smooth. Let's talk about distortion. Like most super wide angle lenses, this 18mm prime also suffers from distortion on the edges of frame. So for example, on this lens, if I move my arms out like this, you're gonna notice it stretch my hands out on the sides. The 18mm is even more prone to this particular effect, so just keep that in mind. It doesn't ruin a shot if you frame it from the center like this, but the closer you get to the edges, the more of that distortion you'll see. Now, if you're going to be shooting landscapes, for example, this won't be a problem, but if you're a video shooter or vlogger, you're best to frame yourself closer to the center than off to the sides. Otherwise, you can get some of that kind of distortion that is just prone to these super wide angle lenses. Let's talk about continuous autofocus for video now. This 18mm prime is pretty solid for these kind of standard shots like this. The entire video, even these particular parts, were shot with the Panasonic S5 in autofocus mode. The best results shooting at f1.8, turn the speed up to +2 and set the responsiveness accordingly. I usually set it down to -1. One area mode and face detection on the 18mm seemed to work pretty well. It didn't work 100% correctly all of the time, but adjusting those parameters made a huge difference. And if you're also going to be shooting in 4K 60 or 50 frames per second, or in the 1080p 60 or 50 frame modes, this is where you'll see the best improvement in autofocus. Stopping down at f2.8 also makes the autofocus system much faster when you're shooting 24, 25 or 30p. There's also a video wobble algorithm correction which helps correct some of that DFD pulsing like you might find on some of the older Panasonic cameras. Now, this has been corrected on the S5 on the most part. You'll still notice it if it's looking for focus, but once it finds focus, the S5 has been really good, paired with the 18mm lens. And if you adjust some of the custom AF settings, you can really get this to work. It won't work 100% of the time, but I did find on the most part, for the kind of shots that I do, it worked pretty well. When it comes to getting background blur, subject separation, or bokeh, it is achievable with this 18mm super wide angle lens, which really surprised me, but you need to be fairly close or have your subject fairly close to the lens to achieve this effect. It's never going to have the same amount of background blur as a 35 or 50mm, for example. So if you're looking for that look, you'll need a different lens. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised with the results I got from this 18mm. If you plan on shooting in low light, this lens does perform really well when paired with the Panasonic S5. I would expect the exact same results out of the S1 or S1H, for example. Whether you're shooting videos or photos, this 1.8 aperture on a full frame camera will give you some really solid low light performance. To give you my 2 cents on this lens, I really enjoyed using it on a gimbal, and I also appreciated some of its handheld and low light performance to a point. Now, its low light performance was solid, but its handheld performance is a mixed bag. Depending on your technique and how you walk with this lens, if you are doing handheld work, this is the difference between getting a shot that looks great and something where you might notice a little bit of warping in the corners. But for tripod work, gimbal work, low light stuff, this lens will do a really solid job. The biggest benefit I saw from this lens was using it as a primary shot in this particular room. The room is far smaller than it looks. Even the 20 to 60mm kit lens at 20mm can be too tight in this room. So this 18mm matched the rest of the S series of primes beautifully. I didn't have to do anything to this video footage in post. It just looks great. If you're in a home studio and you have limited space, an 18mm definitely makes the shot feel a lot bigger. When it comes to sharpness, this lens definitely delivered, especially for video work. Comparing it up against the 24mm f1.8, there wasn't a huge difference, and I love the look of the 24, so they're very, very comparable in that regard. Most super wide angle lenses suffer from a little bit of vignetting in the corners, and this one was no exception. At f1.8, it's clearly visible. At f4, it's basically removed. Stopping down at f16 really made it easy to get that beautiful Sunstar effect, and I'll show you some examples of that on screen. Much like the rest of the Panasonic primes in this series, they handle chromatic aberration and color fringing extremely well, so you don't get that much of it. But in super high contrast situations, I noticed that when I was shooting the Lumix logo on my GH6, for example, which I'm shooting with right now, there was a little bit of color fringing on the text there, but otherwise it performed beautifully, especially for video. Thanks again for watching, folks. My name's Shane. If you found this video helpful, please leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell, all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna get out of here before I get eaten alive. The mosquitoes are brutal. Let me know if you can see them right now. They're everywhere here. It's terrible. I'll catch you soon. See ya.